So actually we're filming. There was an actual filming for a vlog filming for yesterday, but I like to say I was a little over exuberant about the topic, and that I ran a little later than I have, and now I actually have in the background here the clock running so I can tell how long I have. But mostly, honestly, it was it was due I was wearing because I was the way I was leaning in the chair for the entire time I was sitting there. I'm dressed all in denim, and I look kind of like this denim elder thing. There's this conical presence on the sixth seat, and I said, "This is not attractive. I don't think I'm gonna put this up there." So anyway, but you know, the topic that we are discussing now is what goes on about outside of the window of my fine new abode here. Actually, tonight was and it's certainly a better example of what was going on out there. I mean, it is the rather lively, if somewhat amazingly quiet, shadow market going on out there. There's a lot of drug dealing on the corner of here at the 3rd and Bell in this area. And tonight when I stepped out the window, there was just all the corners were packed, and there was much assemblage going on, if you want to put it that way. And there's dissemblage. I don't know how I'm going to use. It just there's a lot of trading going on, and it was only called the business of the market was only called on insanity due to some crazy old guy trying to buy more drugs than he had money for because he was trying to kill himself. And once they told him he couldn't buy any more than what he had, I believe this is just deduction from what I've seen, he walked out into the middle of the street, started waving his arms and waiting for a car to come along to hit him. This, of course, brought out the police. Unsurprisingly, a guy wandering around the middle of the street yelling gets a little more attention than, the illicit drug trade that everyone knows goes on here. And, of course, everyone was gone in that instant. I mean, they all just scattered. Excuse me. And now as I look at my window again, I just peeked out there again. Business is picking up again. It's just, I know at some level I should not be so fascinated by this because I'm being a little. Its sense of detachment is kind of awful, because in a sense, I mean, this is wheeling and dealing between people addicted to substances that are pretty darn bad. I mean, it's more likely they're trading out there in opiates and cocaine and its derivatives. And I don't want to say that because that sounds terrible. I'm so Seattle saying this is socially unacceptable drugs. Anyway, but the fact is that it is still a market of human suffering where that the people buying the drugs are probably doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing, that are harming other people to probably acquire these drugs. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, the addictive beast. But at a certain level, it's kind of enthralling. It's hard to put it any other way, because what's going on is it's kind of this pure, unregulated capitalism at a certain level. I mean, yes, it's illegal and there is the law element, but you don't see the law element very often, and if you do, there seems to be kind of nonchalance about it. I mean, the first night I was here, there were 2 cops on the roof doing surveillance in the corner, like they were out doing bird watching, and it was just like, okay. And so it's pretty much an unregulated field, and you're just watching kind of what is amazingly dedicated work put in by some of these guys. I mean, this is the beginning of winter here, and it has been, the weather's been relatively insane for this area, including, snow, incredible winds. We had some really terrible rain, and I've been here, and that's how pretty much happened with the last month since I started coming here, living here, and they've been out in all of it. I mean, rain, sleet, snow, middle of the night, 12 degrees out there, 10 degrees out there. They're out there rotating around their corners, doing their business, following their patterns so they don't stay in one place for too long. That they have, following the chain of command. You can see that the vast majority of them are the low end, basically salesmen. And then there are, probably, I guess one could call them supervisors, who are probably the ones actually holding the drugs. You see them rotated in and out of bags and things along those lines, and they're probably actually holding the drugs. And then comes management, who actually gathers the money and probably sets the assignments. And they come in, they get to drive. They get to drive around. And it's just this little microcosm of pure American business going on outside of my window. And I think the thing to me is that it's strange that America, reactionary forces, America's much more conservative elements, believe that business is the defining element in our society. It's it should not be hindered with. It should be allowed to flow and grow. It can self-regulate and self-control itself. Profit and enlightened self-interest. All of that stuff is very important to them, and they're having they're still supporting this full-on war on drugs against people who are just basically doing the same thing. And because they're doing it unregulated, there's a lot more crime involved in it, and death and impure product and all kinds of stuff that makes that is pretty good proof of what happens when you don't really regulate an industry very well. I mean, and it's just baffling sometimes. I think that's to me what it is. It's places like this, when you live inside a city. It becomes, for people who live in it, you're not afraid of it too much. It's hard not to be too. You have to be a little bit afraid of a city. Cities are always like that, because there are mysteries upon mysteries upon mysteries, little things going on all around you at all time. And for the vast majority of people, they really don't pay attention to it. They don't really, it. They may acknowledge it, they may see it, but they detach themselves completely from it, and they're not aware of it. And whether that thing is awful or beautiful, whether it's done with, for positive or negative, judgmentally, whatever, they're still incredibly complicated social spectacles. Things that part of this great dance that is urban living. And we just tend to it seems like a lot of people tend to glaze over this. And I think these social spectacles will probably be themselves, with the issues that seem to come from these social spectacles, will be a lot less if people really understood how incredibly dedicated and very insistent and stubborn and tenacious of people we are to do the things that we got to do, and to watch that happen even in the worst of things. But that kind of understanding, I don't know, who knows. But for me, it's like, continue to sit out here, and I'm here for a couple more months, and I'm just going to continue to watch these guys. And I don't know. I mean, they are. I think the problem with the video from last one was I think I was a little too effulgent, a little too over enthusiastic about my admiration for these gentlemen. And that's kind of, that seemed to be a bit much, because I think I was trying to be a little sarcastic, but it didn't come across that way. But at a certain level, I can't help but kind of admire people. I mean, they're doing what they believe they have to do, or they're doing what they believe they should be doing to gather that which the society in which they live tells them is important, by their own terms. It's why we still admire outlaws, why we still admire people who live beyond the law, even though most of the terrible damage of crime is done by larger bodies and much more powerful figures of economy and business and politics. I mean, it's sometimes you can watch the corners and know that the death's coming around the corner for some of these people. And that their damage and things, it's minute compared to the kind of things that that an enlightened self-interest body of government or business will believe it's the right thing to do. So, but that's the hardest thing to deal with. So to me, I continue to focus on on the dance. I just focus on and watch this every day a little bit, and think about it. Like when you go out, where, and this isn't even really a city thing. This is a people thing. This is a human thing. Pick something out, something that's happening around you that you see often, but you've never really thought about it, and start watching the process and start trying to understand how it works, and you'll be pretty amazed what you'll actually see because you haven't looked at it more deeply than you haven't looked at it very deeply. So I always would recommend this. So I'm actually just closing on my time here. I don't want to break the YouTube limit on videos here, so because we're going to continue to make these short and succinct, so I don't ramble on as I did this message anyway. But I will post this tomorrow, and we'll see what's going on. I just again once wanted to share reflections from outside the window on facing on 3rd and Bell, where it happens to be snowing. Hopefully I'll talk to you again later.